everyone, and welcome to Take Two Radio. I'm Pam, your host, and joining me today as my co-host is the ever so talkative, can't wait her turn, Sabina. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Sabina take over the whole show, and she can just do the whole interview by herself.
Oh, man, you smarty pants.
And I know you're freaking out right now because you already said you would. Yeah. Sometimes it's funny how jokes can come to fruition because when I had called into the show to start the show, just before that I told Sabina, I go, I'm going to not call in, I'm going to let you do the show by yourself. And then I called in to start the show, and all of a sudden it says to me, the recording says, due to technical difficulties with our phone system, blah, 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 try your call again later. And I thought, oh, no. That's what I get for teasing her. So thankfully, everything worked out, and we are here. And so is our wonderfully quiet guest. And let's go ahead and announce him. Sabina, you can have the pleasure.
Oh, well, without further ado, it is Tony Moore from Loungin With Tony. Hello, Tony.
Yay! Hello. How are you guys?
Good.
I was being so quiet
today.
because I was being quiet because I was just listening. I was instructed to be quiet. The show was about to start, so I was quiet until it was my turn.
I love obedient guests.
Boy.
I didn't want to be the cause of anything, so I was like, okay, she said to be quiet. I'm going to be quiet and just wait my turn and just listen for my name. So I was just simply listening.
You know, it's been a really goofy day. I'm in Chicago, and right in the middle of General Hospital, all of a sudden we get breaking news, and I thought, oh, boy, what's going on now? And they break in to tell us that we just had a 3.7 earthquake, maybe about 10-minute drive from my house was supposedly the epicenter of this earthquake.
Oh,
and
wow.
then a little while later, all of a sudden they come back on again, break into GH, like towards the end, and they're saying, well, now we found out it wasn't actually an earthquake. It was a blast that they did over at the quarries, and it registered as a 3.7 on the Richter scale in Colorado.
Oh, my gosh.
Then on the 5 o'clock news, they're like, well, they think it was a blast, but then it caused an earthquake.
Okay.
So at some point, the news is going to get it right.
I hope so.
You would hope.
They seem to be doing some very intensive investigating and updating you guys on their research.
It's just too funny because we don't know what we should feel. But the funny part about it is I didn't even feel any of it. My daughter, who happens to be not too far from the supposed epicenter, was sleeping and said that she actually got shook almost out of the bed and that everything, including the windows and stuff, were rattling and like pictures were moving and that. So whatever happened, just disjointed every Chicagoan today. So if we start talking loopy, you'll know why.
Aha, that explains it.
Yeah, we're not used to it like these people in California.
Well, earthquakes don't actually come that often, at least since I've been here. I need to knock on wood because that's actually my worst fear is to have an earthquake around here. But I've lived here for 5 years now, and we actually don't get them too often, so that's good because I think I'd be a nervous wreck if suddenly my little room started shaking and stuff started moving around.
Mm-hmm. When did you move there?
I moved to L.A. 5 years ago in 2008, August of 2008, to pursue acting and hosting. And so far, so good. Slow and steady wins the race, as I always say. So clearly I'm going very slowly but very steadily.
Tell Pam where you originated from. You're from the East Coast.
Yeah, I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. And I always say that I'm from Columbia because that's the longest place I've lived. My dad was in the military, so we traveled around quite often. And when he retired in South Carolina. And I remember when he decided to retire, I thought, could we not just move one more time so that way we could end up in, I don't know, L.A.? But that was not going to happen. But he retired in Columbia, and I lived there for, oh gosh, what seemed like forever. Because when you're a military kid, you're so used to moving every couple of years. So being, I don't want to say stuck in living in South Carolina for an extended period of time. That sounds so much better than saying stuck.
Yes.
Was very it was very different, but it was very nice all the same. So.
Well, and I think that probably military families would either feel the way that you do, where they enjoy the moving around every couple of years, or they hate it. I kind of find it hard to think that maybe there's a middle to that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was like, moving to a new place, each time and kind of discovering a new place was fun for me. I think one of the best places we lived in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany, for 4 years. And
wow.
I was young, so I feel like I couldn't appreciate the fact that I was living in Europe. My biggest thing was, oh my God, we're moving to Germany. I'm going to have to eat German food. What am I going to do? And I remember the first thing I did when we got to our housing, which was on a military base, I looked in the cabinets to see what food we had. And I saw Chef Boyardee, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I'm going to be okay. I can do this.
How old were you?
How old was I? I think I was like 8 or so. However old you are when you're in the second grade. That's like 8, isn't it?
Yeah, around 7, 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Depending when your birthday is.
Yeah, so because I remember we moved there when I was in the second grade, and I was there from second grade to 5th grade. And thanks to that can of Chef Boyardee that I discovered in our cabinet, I was able to survive those 4 years because the whole trip there, I was just thinking, like, what do they eat? Do they eat sausages all the time? Am I going to have to eat sausages or bratwurst or whatever they? And that was my whole concern, was what was I going to eat? Not thinking like, wow, you're going to be living in Germany and getting to experience, German culture and things like that. My main concern was what was going to be on my dinner plate.
Well, and the thing is, with you saying Chef Boyardee, it's making it sound like that's all your mother fed you.
No. No, she cooked and things like that. I think it was just seeing something Americanized in Germany that made me feel like, okay, there's a store around here somewhere that sells food that I'm used to, so we're good. We can continue living here.
Now, was there any place that you moved to that you really didn't want to leave?
Not really. All the places that we lived in, I enjoyed for, whichever reason. And, I mean, like I said, we lived in Germany. I was actually born in Hawaii. And we lived in Hawaii for a year after I was born. I don't remember that, but one day I will go back to visit Hawaii. But we lived in Hawaii. We lived in Texas, we lived in Germany, Alabama, and then we finally settled in South Carolina. So all the places I enjoyed for, whichever reason. There wasn't a place that I was just like, oh, dear God, please get me out of here. Or, and I was kind of, once my dad retired, we weren't traveling anymore, so I was just kind of like, where am I going to live now or move to now? So I always consider going to college. I went to college an hour outside of Columbia, which was in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I consider that my move. So I kind of moved up a little, which it's not a big move, but I still consider it my little soft move before I then eventually moved to LA. So.
Now, was it, I would imagine with you moving so much, even though it was with your family, moving to California on your own was pretty easy?
It was, actually. I came out for a visit in June of 2008 just to see if I could live here. And once I got off the plane and I started, driving towards a friend of mine's house that I was staying at, I was like, I could totally do this. It kind of, except for the traffic. Mm-hmm. I will not ever understand the concept of traffic. If someone can ever understand why there are a massive group of people going in the same direction that you are at the same time, I would be very happy for someone to explain that to me. But for the most part, I was like, I could do this. It's easy to get around. The weather's good. And the whole concept, some people, when they move away from home, it's that concept of family's here, I'm here, and how am I going to, live on my own? But I think coming from a military-type family, it was just easy for me to adjust to moving to L.A. and taking the risk of, moving here by myself. But I had a little bit of preparation before I moved here officially, so.
Now, when you moved there, did you have a job right away?
I didn't. I had enough money from family for a month, and I had done some research that week that I came out in June to see, like, what jobs were kind of available, what the job market was kind of like, and I landed a job at a casting company that I work for now. And that I've been at for 5 years. So luckily, shortly after I moved, I started working there. So it was kind of like, thank God. Once I got here, I hit the ground running. And I was like, I have to find a job because I don't want to be one of the people that move back home in the next few months. So I was like, I have to find a job. I have to figure this out. And I did. So, and I've been at that company for 5 years now, and I enjoy casting and helping out with that, as well as pursuing my acting and hosting career.
Well, with working for a casting company and you're an actor and a host, does that work in your favor?
Sometimes you kind of get to see or know of certain shows and stuff that are filming their pilots, which, as many people know, pilots are, kind of like test shows for a network to see if it's going to get picked up or not. So it's kind of, interesting to kind of see, that happening and then being excited like, oh, that show is being picked up and we, kind of helped out with some casting with that. So, yeah, I mean, that's the most enjoyable part, I think, with that and how it kind of helps out with the acting and stuff, just kind of knowing what's out there maybe before, the general public does.
Now, are you allowed to go on those casting calls from your own company when you find out about them?
Well, my company does background work, so I am allowed on my days off, I can do some stuff, but as long as it doesn't interfere with work, then I can do it, but I can't take a day off to go and do background work for their show. Yeah,
I think you'll be busted easily.
Yeah, I think that's when it becomes a little conflict of interest. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when did you get into hosting your own show, Loungin with Tony?
Loungin with Tony came about 3 years ago. I wanted to develop